Hello, Bio20. It is wonderful to speak to you again. Today, I'm bringing to you the phosphorus cycle. We are going to go through the process of how phosphorus is cycled through the earth. And please make sure you have read the highlights of this phosphorus cycle before you do this video. Just gives you a little bit more extra information about phosphorus. So again, like most of the other videos we have done so far, here is your mountain landscape, your beautiful little ocean and a sun. And today we are going to add a deer and a stick tree, a stick deer and a stick tree. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, this drawing is phenomenal. We are going to talk about how phosphorus gets put back into the ground. So what we have here is the natural process of death. That's right. These lovely organisms, unfortunately, have lived a great life and now have died. So decomposers are going to utilize that, and they are going to turn their waste back into organic waste. In the process, they put phosphates into the soil. So that's kind of where we see the fast cycle of phosphorus. Fast cycling of phosphorus is essentially the death of any organism, the decomposing of it, putting phosphates in the soil. Once there's phosphates in the soil, we can have this process called leaching. Now, leaching may be something you remember hearing in Science 9. Leaching is essentially when water is running over a surface such as rocks, and it's pulling out the minerals from the rocks and putting it into the water. In the world of pollution, it can be dangerous if it's something like heavy metals that are moving into the water. It can cause toxicity. But in this case, it's just phosphates, which are naturally healthy for the water as long as there's not a ton of them being put in. Once they're in there, the phosphates become in solution. Now, what you have to understand is phosphates here in solution is natural. It's normal. It's okay. When things like farming happens, you have to use fertilizers in order for crops to grow. And what ends up happening, if you remember, again, Science 9, thinking back to Science 9, there is the process of non-point source and point source pollution. Point source pollution is just dumping straight into the water. Non-point source means it comes from somewhere else. In non-point source pollution, it's usually in the case of runoff from farms, which adds extra nutrients into water, such as phosphates and nitrates. What ends up happening is you have something called eutrophication occur. And eutrophication is when those nitrates and phosphates feed the algae. They're nutrients for those algae, and the algae just blooms or just blossoms, and boom, you have all this algae all over the surface of your water. When you have that happen, the sun cannot penetrate into the water. Therefore, no photosynthesis is happening at the bottom with the different plants that are there. No photosynthesis, no oxygen. No oxygen, animals start dying. So too much phosphates and too much nitrates actually becomes a very dangerous thing. But in this case, natural phosphates are leached in and mixed in solution. Then what ends up happening is those phosphates over time will settle down into the rock, into sedimentation. They will form large rocks, which through the process of geological uplifting, so the shifting of the tectonic plates, the movement of Earth, you will eventually see things like mountains or hills. And what it does is when they move and they sprout up, they expose those rocks to weathering, which is the slow cycle. When it rains, the same process of kind of leaching happens through weathering. The rain runs down onto those rocks and it pulls down phosphates out of those rocks and it runs it back into the water, which then sedimentation occurs. Eventually we'll see geological uplifting and so forth. So this, ladies and gentlemen, the leaching to sedimentation to rocks to uplifting is all about the slow cycle, the way that phosphate stays on the earth and moves around in a cycle. Key piece about phosphorus cycle, it does not cycle in the atmosphere. It is the only one that we talk about that does not have any sort of atmospheric phosphate. Okay, there's no phosphates up in the atmosphere. It just stays on the ground. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you soon.